Hey y'all, this is TCA Gaming, and in this video we are going to go over some of the downsides of when you sell stuff that is in like a random lot. Because I talked with you guys about before how when I sell that stuff, it moves really fast. It's an easy way to make buyers happy in a way because they don't really know what they want. But I'm also going to show you guys sometimes what can happen. And so here's a situation where I had a buyer who bought the PSA 7 or higher, and they got this right here. They got the Battle Academy Espeon in a Mint 9. And when they got this card, they actually left me positive feedback. They were happy with it. And then they ended up coming back to buy the PSA 10 lot, which was about $5 higher. I think actually might have been $8 higher at that time, because this one was $14.99. I think that one was $22.99. I did end up raising the price on that one, where they were this was one where they were guaranteed a PSA 10 as long as it was a rare or higher or anything like that. But when they bought it, this is what they got. They got an Espeon again. So they sent me a message like, hey man, what are the chances that I got the same type of card for both different random lots? And I was like, hey, that does happen sometimes. I didn't say it like this, because when you're communicating through eBay, you really need to be very conscious of not accusing the buyer or the seller of not being responsible in any way. I know it sounds kind of weird, but you don't want to set them off. And I think I said something along the lines, it is very possible. This is a card that I have in I have both this one and the Mew, and I have these spread out in the 7 or higher random lots, and I have same thing, the Espeon and the Mew spread out in the PSA 10 lots. And the reason I do these two particular cards is because people really like mythical Pokemon like Mew, and they also like evolutions. Anything to do with Eevee, Espeon, Umbreon, any Pokemon like that, people are typically happy with. And you'll find that I have some of these Battle Academy cards in the actual picture of the card, and this is the first time I've had somebody have a problem with it. But they're like, okay. And then they end up buying, I believe it was one of the 910 full arts, and this is what they got. And I'm not sure what set them off, but they opened up a return for this one, and they stated that it was scratched up, and of course the picture they provided was really bad. It was just like a blur. And the reason I'm not showing a lot of this on the screens because I don't want to reveal customer information. I don't want to get anybody doxxed. I am going to show you some things. It may be where I have to like leave a part of the screen showing and then blank it out and not be able to move around too much. But yeah, so they started a return for this one, then immediately they started a return for this card here, saying that the card was loose inside the case. I don't know if they meant because it could move slightly inside of here, but that shouldn't have been the case. If you move around enough, you're going to be able to have slight movement on just about any Pokemon card in a PSA graded card case. So, and of course, they didn't take pictures of any of this stuff. I mean, it was just like a blur and a black screen. And the way I have these listings set up, it automatically accepts returns. Now, if he had just come to me and said, hey, I got the same card, I'd like to return it, I wasn't looking for this again, I didn't tell you that, that I had already received this other one, because if I do say in my description, if they state that they've received certain cards, if they'll let me know, then I'll make sure that they don't get those same cards again when I go to pull out of the box, and they'll get something different. But I mean, I can't keep up with all of my customers and what they buy, especially when I'm pulling out of a random box for all of time. Like if you bought something from a random lot and then you come back and buy from another random lot, or the exact same one in some cases, let me know what you bought, and then I can make sure that you don't receive the same thing. Like that's kind of how that works. But I do have open returns on this, one of the few items that I do, mainly because I realize this is one of those items where it's just a random item, most likely parents or somebody's going to be buying. If he just let me know that they didn't want the item, he didn't have to lie about what was wrong with these items. He could have just returned them, and that would have been fully taken care of. All right, so I get the cards back. So he opened up the return for these two. Right? He actually sent me a picture of both of these through eBay, so I can confirm that this is the cert number 9 for PSA 9 that he received from me, and that's the cert number for the PSA 10 that he received from me. But when I get them back, instead of returning this 10, he returns this Colossal V, which again, the reason was a false claim, and then he returns this Espeon 9 for the Gem Mint 10. So at this point, I'm still trying to let the buyer have all the benefit of the doubt. I look at this one and I'm just like, you know what? He could have returned it and just said he didn't like it and I would have accepted it. So I just went ahead and refunded him in full for this one. And I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit because I was told to do something different by an eBay representative. And then on this one, I was like, okay, he didn't return the correct card. He opened up the return for the Gem at 10, which was $22.99, $8 more. So I have the option to do a partial refund in a case like this. And so I refunded him $14.99, deducted the $8. And I said, hey, he returned the $14.99 card that he purchased several days prior. He did not return the Gem at 10 that he opened the return for. And then eBay automatically deducts that money and only refunds him $14.99. A few minutes later, I received not a message from the buyer. Well, actually, I sent him a message. I said, hey, I realized it was probably just an accident. You didn't return the correct card. You returned the lower graded Espeon, the Mint 9. So I deducted the amount of the difference, the $8. The $14.99 is what you paid for this one. So that's what I refunded. He opens up a case. He appeals it. And he says, hey, I didn't. But what he said in the case was that I didn't refund him the correct amount of money. So at this point, it's kind of like, okay, he knows what's going on. Maybe this wasn't an accident. And I call up eBay and I talk with them. She's like, yeah, I can see that, you know, in the picture, she can verify that this is the one that he received. And he also received this. But instead of returning this card, he actually returned this one. So it's like, I'm going to credit you the $8, but we're going to refund him anyways just because it's only $8 and we don't really feel like fighting it. However, please, in the future, if somebody opens up a case, even if you have open returns, if they open up a false claim on a case, you need to report that buyer instead of refunding them. So like even in the case of this where I had open returns, they were telling me, make sure I report this buyer for opening up a false claim about the case being damaged, which it is not. And then for this one right here, with the card being loose in the case, that's not a valid claim for PSA as well. I mean, if the card itself was indeed loose in the case, then sure. But being where it is supposed to be and having slight movement, that is not being loose in the case. So she actually reported them. There was a report sent in when I deducted the $8 anyways for not sending in the correct card, but she wanted me to submit a report as well for the wrong case, for the wrong reason on the case being opened up. And sure enough, not too long after that, I go to look at my feedback profile. Let me see if I can pull it up while I'm talking with you guys. And I see a blip of one negative feedback, and that negative feedback is from the guy on one of these two items, and it was something like this is a junk slab, something like this. All right, so if you're looking at my feedback profile, you can see right here where he left a negative and he left a negative. So he left two negatives on my account. However, eBay was already apparently aware of what's going on. Usually if I'm left a positive or a neutral or negative feedback and there's something in the feedback that is obviously a violation, then I can call into eBay and they'll take care of it. But in both cases here, I didn't even get a chance to call into eBay. They removed those feedbacks before I had a chance to see if there was anything that could be done, since he didn't even return the correct card on the one that I saw that he had left negative feedback on. In fact, this was done because I immediately picked up the phone and started calling him, and it put me on hold, and I went to check the feedback profile again, and it was gone. So they took it off super fast. I didn't even see the other negative feedback that was left. And so I counted myself really lucky there. And sure enough, not too long after that, a return was actually opened for this third item right here, the one that they left positive feedback for. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe they're going to return the Espeon PSA 10 at this point because that's the one that they kept, even though they've opened it up for the 7. And of course, when they do, finally they do return it, and it will return in a timely manner, I guess. Let me straighten this back up a little bit. They returned this right here. It was just thrown into a box, and if you look right here, there is an obvious sizable chip missing from the case. So at this point, I was expecting something like this to be done. In fact, I've kind of cleaned this case a little bit just in case they did something to the case, because I'm a little paranoid in that way. Who knows what they would have stomped on it or they would have rubbed something on it. I really don't know. But it was just thrown in a box. But it was not damaged during transit because the plastic was not in there. It had a case on it that case didn't have any damage to it. The box didn't have any damage to it. And this card, this PSA case wouldn't have been sent out by me in the first place if it had that chip. But on top of that, it was also pictured in one of his messages where he sent it to me with this exact cert without that chip. So I can verify, even through eBay messages, that he received it in good condition. He left positive feedback, and then he opened up a false return again. He said it was because it was scratched or something like that. Of course, again, no, actually this was a loose in case, and again, it's not. It's where exactly it should be. There's going to be slight movement for any card inside of a PSA case. We do know this, but it's not outside the lines where it should not be. It is exactly where it's supposed to be. So I reported him for of course, for the wrong case being opened up. But this time, instead of doing the refund, I called them up. I was like, hey, I can't, this card, it has a chip case on it. It's going to cost basically almost what the card itself costs to have it replaced, because the most you can refund or partially refund, deduct from the refund that you're going to send them is about 50%. So what she ended up doing was like, hey, you know what, do the partial refund. I'm going to give you a coupon for the item price, and then if he decides to open up a claim against you, we're most likely just going to give him the refund because it's only going to be $7.50 or so at this point. So I do that. I refund the $7.49, and then she gives me a coupon. And after that, he ends up opening up a case again. But by this time, I've reported him several times. And since this time, I've actually looked at his feedback, and he's left 2 more negatives for other people, which is a shame because this person has over 1,000 feedback. He's been on eBay for years. In fact, he's bought from me over 2 years ago, and I never had any issue. It's just I don't know if they just had a bad day and they got really mad because they got 2 Espeons and then they got some other card that they did not want from this random card lot. But if they had come to me at any point and be like, hey, these are just cards I don't want. I see you've got free returns. I'd like to return it. I would have accepted it, because that's what happens when you put returns accepted on a product on eBay. If somebody wants to return something because they don't like it, they can't, and it would have been fine. Like that, he could have he could have just did that instead of ruining one card, getting his account reported, having me go through extra steps. In fact, I probably would have even provided him with the shipping label. I think this way he has to pay for shipping. So I paid for shipping 3 times. He paid for shipping 3 times. There's a ruined card. I mean, it's just crazy the lengths that some people will go over a certain amount of just for a small amount of money. And on top of that, they don't have to go that route. Most sellers are going to work with you. Some won't, but you should try that first before you go this extreme of a route. And I guess I'm a lucky one because the eBay was looking out for my account, on top of, making sure that I got some of the refund back. I received a coupon, and those negative feedbacks were removed without me having to do anything at all. So I wouldn't put it past a buyer like this to go create another account and just try to buy something and leave me negative feedback for the heck of it. But hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully he was just having a bad day, and we just don't do business anymore. But if he ends up, doing this to other sellers, that's where it starts to get to be, a real issue. And that's why I did make sure to put in all these reports about what they had done incorrectly, what they lied about, the fraud. I mean, because this was obviously damaged in his possession, whether it be on purpose or because he dropped it. I mean, right there in the middle of the case. I mean, that's going to be tough to do without targeting that. I mean, that's a deep chip into the case without there being no other damage around it. Sometimes that is a cost of business, and I hope that you can move past it and not let it deter you from selling on places like eBay or avoiding fees or taxes or things like that, because it will limit how big you can get if you try to let these things keep you from doing things the right way. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I know it was more of a complaining rant type thing, but I wanted to share this with you just because not everything is, it's not always smooth sailing on eBay. This is a rarity usually when it comes to buyers. For the most part, people are still very honest, and I think that type of mentality, being honest, being responsible, that's going to keep places like eBay running, because if you wanted to, anybody could scam anybody if they put enough effort into it, and then you might end up on a rattle video. But yeah, I'm going to stop ranting there. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll have another one coming out soon.